Good afternoon and welcome to our 1 o'clock work session for Cleveland City Council. Today, Monday, August the 12th. We will begin our work session. We have a couple of recognized presentations. We will begin with Dr. Jeff Elliott, our new Director of Schools. And I see members of the school board. Thank you for coming today.
I'll just come for just a moment just to say thank you so much for your support and help in getting us the 775 Raider Drive building. We had our ribbon cutting last Monday, a great event, and we're in a good space. Our individuals and our team have moved in, and we're opening that up for our teacher trainings coming up this year and also for community events. We already had several people this past week reach out and say, we've heard this is a good place to have some sessions and meetings. Can we schedule it? And this is outside even our school team. So we're really excited about having that. And I'll just wanted to commend Hal Taylor and his team for overseeing this project and making that work. We set out about a year ago for 18 months to complete this project. We're not completely finished. There's still some things going on, but almost essentially finished in 13 months. So hats off to him. And we came in under budget. So it's always good when we can come in under budget on that and transfer that those money and hopefully use those to help our students out, specifically to the classrooms. So just wanted to say thank you again for your commitment and support of Cleveland City Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott.
Dr. Elliott, I'd like to ask a question. In front of Cherokee School,
Yes.
you have two lots there. Does the school system own both of those lots?
Yes, those two lots right there next to the storage units. Yes,
Yes.
that's my understanding.
Exit
Yes.
storage. You have both of them.
Right, we have from the
Yes.
storage unit all the way past right there by our driveway.
That's, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions from the council? Mr. Favis, anxiously awaiting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Today we want to recognize Hunter Fowler. Hunter is our MTAS summer internship. She is currently a student at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga for a Master's in Public Administration. She's been with us for 10 or 12 weeks. Hunter toured each department of the city, was able to experience the broad and various duties across the city, including ride-alongs with the police and fire departments, and frequent tours of our capital projects. She sat in on numerous council meetings and as well as committee and boards across the city. One of the highlights of her experience was being able to attend the annual TML conference due to the educational classes and networking. She really learned a lot, and if you can stand up, we can say thank you. Any comments you have?
Just thank you so much for letting me have this opportunity. Well, I enjoyed it.
Good, thank you. And MPAS paid her salary, and we got a lot of benefit from that. I know that you were with MTAS this last week, so we appreciate it and want to continue bringing the best and brightest into the city.
Great, thank you. Mr. Favis, the next says skate park.
Mikey G.
Oh, Big Mike.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Glasgow. I am a citizen of Cleveland, been here since 1996. I'm from north of Knoxville originally, so I sound a little different. Anyways, I'm here on behalf of proposing a new skate park for the city of Cleveland. I'm not a skater myself, but I was riding my bike along the Greenway, which I'm very thankful for the Greenway, and I see that our city puts a lot into recreation, health benefits, the pickleball courts, Tinsley, many things for health, for stress relief, just healthy ways to get out there, enjoy outdoors. I was riding my bike by, and I was looking at that skate park, and pretty much, to be honest, it looks kind of pitiful. It's very outdated. It's not much to it when you compare it with skate parks in other cities. skating is huge. I know maybe some of y'all aren't into skating or have skaters, but it's the third most popular sport for young people in this country, and it's just a great opportunity for them. They develop friendships, they work towards goals, they work towards their health. There's so many benefits. There's benefits financially with a great skate park. Of course, it costs money to make a good skate park, but from research, for every dollar you put into making one, you're going to get $3 in economic return. You draw people, you draw families, you draw tourism. You could host events, you could host all kinds of things. To the skaters, there's obviously a benefit, but also to the ones who have to reach into the pockets, make budget decisions. I've heard a lot the last few years about building up, revitalizing, making this a great city with lots to offer, and a skate park would go a long way in that nature. Just draw. Another thing I'd like to say, sometimes in the mind you draw back to the origins of skating, and you think about the kind of person who a skater might be in your mind, just some hooligan or whatever. That's not the case. A lot of these kids are bright kids, good families, who just maybe aren't in traditional sports like football, basketball, and yet it gives them a way to pursue a passion, to work towards something, to develop community, and a safe place for these kids. Because if the town doesn't have a skate place, then the town is the skate place. And it's a lot more dangerous for kids on the streets, maybe using some of the, there's different tricks they like to do involving rails or curbs, this or that. It just provides a lot safer place to do that. And again, it's an investment, but I believe it's a worthwhile investment. I see a lot of money going into pickleball courts, which is great. We have a lot of people, a vast number of people who like pickleball and use it. That's great, it's being used. I'd just like to see some more go towards the youth. Something to invest in our youth. They're our future, they're our sons, our daughters, our neighbors, our nieces, our nephews, and I think it's just a great way to say, hey, you're important, you matter, and we see you, and we want to provide a way for you to continue a healthy lifestyle. We know that youth these days with social media and whatever have a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression, there's this and that. There are studies that show skateboarding is just a great way for them to release stress, tension. Again, everyone knows exercise is good for the body, the mind, the soul. So that's about it. I mean, I'm not going to tickle your ears with anything else. It's just my presentation. I've been talking to other people who do have children who are in the skating world, and they would love to see a great skate park in Cleveland. I just happen to be the one picked to present it today.
Michael, thanks for your presentation, and I think it's very timely. I happen to have been there this weekend, sent Joe some pictures of some other parts of the Greenway, but I noticed the skate park, in my opinion, the graffiti and some of the other, it just looks like it needs to be definitely refreshed, and so I'm very grateful that you took the time to come by today. Any other comments or questions from the council?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, that takes us to item C under special presentations, and that is our Administrator of Elections, Mrs. Fran Green. Fran, thanks for, you've been busy lately.
I have.
Welcome.
Last Thursday, I sent Joe an email, and I'm hoping he forwarded it to you
Yes.
about the vacancy that we have. So if you have any questions for me that wasn't answered in the email, just ask.
Fran, would you go over exactly what happened? Was it not enough signatures? What
You
was the
had
situation?
an office that was up for re-election that the sitting school board member did not pick up a petition. So nobody knew that until after qualifying deadline. So there was not a petition, there was not a candidate for second school board, City of Cleveland School Board, second district. So people started asking questions. I had a write-in candidate. When we looked at the law, we stopped at, they needed 25 votes. In essence, they needed 25 votes plus, or at a minimum of 25, 5% of the district. That 5% was 218 votes. She did get 25, but with the law, she did not receive what she needed to move to the general election. So again, you've got an open seat, and it was a vacancy. We certified last Friday, and that's when the vacancy occurred. So you can appoint until the next scheduled election, which is November 5th. The parties, the Democrat and Republican parties in the county, will certify a candidate to us. They'll hold a caucus. The qualifying deadline is September 11th at 12 noon. My office will issue only independent candidates.
Can you speak to that process? I've had independent people speak to me.
What process?
How does an independent in the second district get their name on the ballot? And to
For this
qual-
particular election,
just for this,
they'll pick up a petition in my office. They'll
25
get 25 signatures in the district, and they'll turn it back in by September 11th, 12 noon. Withdrawal deadline is shortened. It will be September 14th at 12 noon, because we have military ballots going out September 21st, or before.
with the general election in November, the 5% of the 218 won't apply. It'll just be a
No,
majority.
now it's on the ballot.
Okay. That was the questions. Mayor, and to my colleagues, I'd like to add something to the 3 o'clock agenda, appointment of a temporary individual to represent the second district in this window for a couple of months. I don't want the second district to be unrepresented in the next couple of months. So if we could just add that under new business, I'd appreciate it. And thank you for coming and your email.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Any more questions from the council for Mrs. Green? Fran, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, we have one additional request to speak to the council. It's Mr. Nathan Roberts of Hill Street. Mr. Roberts? I understand there's an issue with speeding. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I live on Hill Street and I've had a problem with speeders coming up and down the road. I've got video cameras set up. I think about 2 years ago, there was an incident that happened over there that the city police used my video for the crime that happened. The officer that came in, he noticed a lot of cars going by real fast, and I said, yes, sir, it happens all the time. And I've been trying to get, there's not any speed zone signs in there. Slow children playing or anything. So I was going to see if we couldn't get some signs up, maybe slow some people down.
Mr. Roberts, did you live at the 200 or 300 block level? What's your address?
It's 245.
240, okay.
Yes,
I know right where you're talking about. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I've been dealing with that for quite a while, and I can't even get out to my car without wondering if I'm gonna get hit. So, and then I got another issue that's gonna come up later, so I
right.
just wanna work on that one right now.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Speed.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
All right. That concludes special presentations and public comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council? Seeing none, take us to our item number 2 on the work session agenda, the city manager's report. Mr. Fivas, welcome back.
Did we get his contact information? Yeah, we will call him and tell him that we'll put signs up in the next week or out there, speed signs,
Great.
if anyone
Thank
can do that. Can you make sure you get that? All right, well, thank you very much. Mr. Mayor and City Council, and the first opportunity here is we want to recognize and our two new elect city council members, Dwayne Goff and Dan Moore, are here taking in the fun. But thank you very much, and certainly I think you're in for an adventure of a lifetime. So we appreciate that, and go from there. We want to start, we have a few items to go over. Have a brief presentation talking about what we had been calling as the 3rd Street Corridor meeting, because we have a community meeting coming up next Monday at from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and that is over at the Old Woollen Mill in the Weaver's Room. So we had an initial community meeting. We got community feedback on a number of topics. We have this is a partnership with the federal government, who gave us the RAISE grant to be able to pay for that. And then TDOT has been instrumental in working with us, because these are state roads that we're talking about. And so it's really a state-driven effort to come up with a new potential transportation plan for the downtown. Want to talk a little bit about some of our progress that we've had on the 3rd Street plans in the downtown, and how this, we're going to have this meeting next week, and how does this corridor plan, how does that fit in what we've been talking about the last several years, and what we'll be talking about in the next several years. You do have a paper copy of this presentation. You also have, I passed out, you have a draft of the alignment for the 3rd Street, which we will get to.
In the water, because the water got that high. And so at this point, homeowners are just waiting to make assessments on how much damage you're going to have to clean up once this water recedes. DeMarco.
Yeah, our thoughts are with Tony and his entire community there. Faith, today was supposed to be the first day of school for thousands of children.
That is not my presentation.
Okay.
Olympic update.
All right. It's really the downtown arts and entertainment district, and that's really kind of this area that we're trying to revitalize, and there's several reasons that we'll go through each of those. Part of this is going to be looking back what we have accomplished, and as I said, where we're headed in the future. If you recall, about 10 years ago, in the downtown, we were allocating, I think, $20,000 a year for downtown redevelopment. We hadn't had really any significant redevelopment for a while. It was, and except for the park, the First Street Square Park, which was a significant project, we hadn't really had a strong mission on that. One of the things that the council wanted to do was to work on the downtown area. So we've talked about this several different times, and we're making significant progress going forward. As I've reminded the council, that this is not just the downtown area, but it's also the neighborhoods that surround the downtown. Is that you can't have a successful downtown if the neighborhoods aren't successful, and you can't have successful neighborhoods unless the downtown is successful. And a lot of that you see in the efforts that we've done in Blythe Oldfield with connectivity, with building new parks, with a lot of the redevelopment. College Hill, we've redone a number of facilities, including Mosby Park, but we're actually starting to see R1 single-family housing being constructed for the first time in a long time, and that's very positive. And of course, the historic neighborhood has seen a lot of revitalization and people redoing homes and a lot of those issues. If you remember, we did a 2019 WSP Downtown Master Plan, and we're going to talk a little bit about that on how close are we following that, and what does that look like, and what has that set us up. If we recall in that, one of the key catalyst projects that we had in that was to revitalize the Johnston Park and area where the Cherokee Hotel was. And so that was one of the key elements of that study. We also reviewed 3 master plans, 3 case studies: Kannapolis, North Carolina, Rock Hill, and Greenville. And we can bring that presentation back up. Kannapolis, that was probably 6 years ago, and they've really done a great job of implementation. And when we talked about it 6 years ago, they were talking about building a new baseball stadium in the downtown, and they had actually purchased their entire downtown block, but like 50 properties in the downtown, and they were completely doing an overhaul. If you were to go to Kannapolis right now, you would see that they have made significant progress in that. Same thing with Rock Hill. They have something, Knowledge Park, and they're made progress. They're probably 7 or 8 years ahead of us, and it's good to see that having a plan and implementing the plan works, and following some of the case studies that we've looked at in the past. So, what have we accomplished in the last 5 years? Well, just recently, we have a lot of the work being done on Johnston Park, Inman, but you also have a lot of the revitalization of the Sanda Mill, the Agora, HHM building. A lot of that is driven from having a clear image, and a lot of those people that were developed liked what the council was selling with the downtown master plan, and they decided to invest. So, why do we need a downtown arts and entertainment district? Well, first reason is economic prosperity, is having options for people to come and be entertained and come and spend money, which that new sales tax revenue and the increased property values for a lot of the properties that are not being used at the highest and best value, that will actually keep taxes low. And we've talked about a lot of issues with housing. Is, we're stuck at, we have a number of green fields, and we get these annexations, and we put them in, and they build houses, and we keep on growing out. That's very difficult from a service provision of whether it's public works and doing solid waste pickup, whether it's from the police, whether it's from the fire department, that all of those are very extensive. Now, growing from the inside out and redeveloping properties that you already have, that is preferable in a lot of ways, because a lot of your services are already being delivered, and that's already baked into that. So from a housing shortage, we anticipate about 2,000 new housing units to be built in these downtown neighborhoods in the downtown over the next 10 to 20 years, once we can put the infrastructure in, and you talk about growing from the inside out. A lot of our demographics have indicated that will grow probably 25 to 30,000 residents in the next 25, 30 years. And so we need to think about where are all those people going to live, and what type of options are we going to have for them for entertainment and providing services. So increased affordable housing, so another reason why we have that is you also have different, the more units we have, we know that we have a housing shortage, prices are very high. The more options we have will make the housing hopefully more affordable, and we can hit different price ranges from workforce housing to middle to higher range housing. Well, can't say a whole bunch about this that you don't already know, that one of the strategies too is a lot of our traffic for entertainment and going to dinner is out on Paul Huff Parkway. One of the strategies that we've talked about here is trying to get a lot of that traffic moving to more of your entertainment districts in the downtown, to find those evening opportunities, more opportunities to go to dinner, have different arts options, and be able to keep people from going down to Chattanooga for those options, and being able to keep those people here. And that's kind of, as I just said, local entertainment options are important. Entertainment obviously leads to more tax revenue, and it increases art opportunities for residents. There's a lot of discussion for artists here on doing something and moving forward with some types of enhanced art facility. They do have a new footprint over at the old woolen mill that is doing extremely well. Potential venues for concerts and festivals and other options for the community in the downtown area are important on bringing people from other areas, but also keeping our own people being able to stay here. And last but not least, keeping our younger populations wanting to stay and have a thriving area that they want to live in. Different, whether you're an empty nest adult or whether you're a younger population, a lot of those folks tend to want to live in smaller square footage and more that you can walk to a coffee shop and do a lot of those areas, and we can provide more of those options in the future with the implementation of the downtown arts and entertainment plan, and more restaurants, more local jobs. All right, so what you have in front of you is, this is the design, and I'll turn the light on so you can actually see it. And this is a draft of what will go to, for the public, coming up next Monday. Now, there's still revisions of this, so it's not completed, but we wanted to have an option for the council to be able to look at it and have any comments and feedback, and we will do that over the next few days just to make sure that they don't propose something that is problematic. What you see is a network that connects our Blythe Oldfield with College Hill in an integrated way, and brings and creates a new corridor, like a boulevard on 3rd Street coming down. This is the boulevard that will create the arts and entertainment district, that will create the more jobs, that will create more economic prosperity. So, and we don't necessarily need to go through all of this, but as you look at this and you have questions, please let us know in the next couple days, and go for there. That is not for public consumption. At this point, that will be released next Monday, which would be the official final draft from TDOT. But what you have is we'll talk about the things that we have to do on this parkway that kind of the things that you should anticipate coming up. First of all, we're just completing, this is essentially the RAISE grant on who came up with this design and this is essentially replacing, Inman is a state road, and this is essentially replacing Inman Street with the bridge that goes over the railroad. Number two is, the next step is, once we get this done next Monday, we will roll into one of the conditions when we have the RCE grant, which is the Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant. That's the $30 million grant that will build the bridge over that, is they needed to have this plan done before they began. So we will roll immediately into doing that planning and environmental and design elements for that. All right, so to fully build this, the second part is usually when you get a planning grant for the RAISE, then you apply for the construction funds. And now that we have essentially the plan, and what we'll do is we will apply and get those funds to assist in paying for all this infrastructure. A lot of communities, Goldsboro, North Carolina, Hickory, North Carolina, have got multiple, that this is the path they took, is they did a planning grant and then they got construction funding after that. We are starting a process right now to do an economic analysis. Basically saying, if you built this corridor and you'll need this for your grant, what is the economic impact that this will have for the community in the downtown? How many more tax dollars will it raise? How much will this be a net cost? And basically will give us a pathway and some real economic analysis to say, if you build this is in a 20-year view. Yes, we may have to spend money and it's going to be hard, but it also sets us on a pathway to be very successfully financially. We hope that's what the study says. So we actually are working on getting, we're going through an RFQ process on securing the people that do this type of economic analysis. Purchase key right-of-way, including the former Whirlpool property. On your agenda today, you will see that the owners of the Whirlpool property right now, Phoenix, has signed the agreement that we've talked about. The agreement differs in very slight ways. Travis Henry, who did a lot of the negotiation with us, is very comfortable with that. And if the council approves that, then we will start a process immediately, which is also on your agenda today, to do a phase 1 study, which is the first phase, that we'll start that immediately. We'll get through that, and then they'll say, well, what other analysis do you need to do? And it'll likely say you need to do a phase 2 analysis. And we will work in concert with TDEC, Chamber of Commerce, a lot of those partners in doing the phase 2. Once we've completed the phase 2, we will then close on this property. So by voting today, you still have the ability anytime before that time, if the council wants to go in a different direction, that you can. So there's flexibility. If there's some condition that happens that is problematic, you still have the ability to say, well, not so fast. We found something, or there's conditions have changed in a way that's problematic. At that same time, we will work with TDEC, and we'll enter into an agreement with TDEC called a VOAP, V-O-A-P. It's a voluntary agreement, which when we get into the program, it will relieve any liability for the city and taxpayers for the property. So basically, we're doing all the right steps. We will clean, this is what we need to do, and the taxpayers won't have to clean up any of the property if we became owners of the property. So we will have that worked out with the council and TDEC, so we're protected from that standpoint. I should have mentioned on the phase 2, the state, we're in contention for a grant, and we've talked about that for the brownfield grants. We feel very hopeful with that we will receive that the state will pay for that. Once you enter into the VOAP program, then we've had conversations with Congressman Fleischman. The mayor and I went down and talked to his staff. And we'll do a press on the federal delegation and the state delegation to get brownfield funds to help put the property back into a place that it can be redeveloped and be the cornerstone of the arts and entertainment district in the downtown. Some of it will include, as you see, a park, because it's going to be considered lowland. It's going to be floodplain, so you really can't do any development on there. And we'll come up with an economic plan to be able to do that. So VOAP, brownfield program, clean that up, and then in that same time they'll be constructing the bridge that goes over that, and you'll put your infrastructure in place. And since we've announced this, we've actually have several meetings set up with the developers and different folks that are interested in working with us on that. So we feel very positive about this, but that should not include that this is going to be a very hard, difficult, longer process, probably a couple years. But we're finally making progress on these areas in the downtown. We'll probably go through it. Does anyone have any questions on that? I gave you a lot of information in a very short amount of time.
Will TDOT be making the presentation next week?
The consultants that TDOT has hired, which is WSP, they will be there and they will go through all of the information.
And TDOT will be in the room?
TDOT will be there, as far as I know. Robert? Is Robert here? TDOT will be at the meeting. Yeah.
Do we have a flyer on that, like a PDF file?
Hmm?
Can-
Yeah,
okay.
we'll send that to you.
Okay. And I'm making an assumption here. TDOT's kosher with all of this, right?
Yes, yeah. TDOT, Robert, TDOT supports the 3rd Street corridor plan.
That's correct, yes, they reviewed it from early stages.
Yeah. So, and we can talk a little bit more about that if you want to. Any other additional questions? So you have that. Here's kind of the property that we're talking about. That's kind of the Whirlpool property. And it's always good to go back and look and see what it looks like right now as we make analysis on whether, so that's what it looks like. You all see it all the time. You have to go and, so this is the designs that we had in 2019. And a lot of our designs are still tracking with what we did in 2019, which is helpful. So other things that you have that we talked about in our 2019 study was doing something with the Cherokee Civic Center, which we'll talk about today. Construction of Johnson Park, which is under construction right now. Streetscape on Inman Street, which we talked about in 2019, and that's what we're doing now. Purchase construction of the 160 Inman Street, the county fire station property. We have an agreement on that, and have began that process. Brownfield redevelopment of the former Whirlpool property. I would say we're fully engaged in starting that. And you see the Cherokee Hotel. Disregard the rooftop. I was going to get that question. ADA, because it's a public building, ADA is extremely difficult and for a lot of reasons. But also if you went higher on that building, you get into a whole nother level of regulations for what you have to include. Parking garage, the key is looking at the parking garage. We still need to have that full conversation. I've had a number of conversations with council members. That has to be part of this analysis. Part of this and what you have in there is this is the area behind the museum. You see the museum right here. Here's your event area, commercial property. We still, if using redevelopment state law that you can compel, and you go through the process using the housing authority, that you can still accomplish those things with those pieces of property. Again, and here's another picture. Again, you have the Whirlpool sign, you have some denser mixed use, you have your amphitheater type facility there that we've seen. All of that is included in this design. Then you have your Main Street Inman corridor. It's a little different. There's your downtown. We're working on that. Construction of a new regional down park. We haven't started that, but potentially purchasing the property would begin that conversation. New events plaza that we just talked about. I'll go through these fairly quickly. Construction of a greenway. On this map, one of the comments that isn't in here now, it's on here but it's not clear, is that the greenway corridor, there needs to be a very concise greenway corridor from essentially Starbucks or Inman Street, that the greenway needs to be able to come up through the downtown and go into College Hill and the Blythe Oldfield neighborhoods, going out towards the Walmart in that way. So that's one of the things that why we don't want to put it out there right now, because we still have some things that we're suggesting to change. It's on here and I can show you where it is, but it's not articulated as the way it should be. One thing that we'll do, we'll start having the conversation is having essentially overlay districts put on top of this, so that when people come and develop, that there's it's even a little bit more strict standards than you'd have with your normal CBD. So the Planning Commission will work with our staff on working that. We may actually have a consultant to help do some of those items.
Will that also include a TIF district for the downtown arts and entertainment?
It can, absolutely. If you get into using the housing authority redevelopment code, that opens the door to tax increment financing and several of the other tools, and that's the conversation, but that's how you open those doors.
Great.
And potentially construct a new school in that area at some point in the future. And so I gave you tons of information. Really what we will have more conversations. One of the things that's on my short list here to go over with is that we will be putting together a council retreat, probably in September, that we will go into this stuff much more in depth and working with the council and our new members on coming up with the priorities on how to do many of these items. Just wanted to take the council that we had a mission 5 years ago, and we're starting to see the fruits of that. And redevelopment and change is obviously can be very difficult and painful at times, but we're really doing it for the next several generations, and that's really what from a staff level is it's difficult now, but this is what the future of Cleveland that we can give to our kids and grandchildren in the future. Any comments, questions?
From the council?
Joe, I'm glad we're gonna have a retreat because we've just barely opened the door on the options that we're gonna have downtown and the redevelopment. And also bringing housing downtown is so important, making this work.
Yeah.
That we're really gonna have to put a lot of effort in as we go forward.
Yeah, and I give a lot of credit, and we're talking to one developer, Blake Allison, who did some of this higher density townhouses on First Street. And that's probably some more of the projects that we need in the downtown of people walking out and be able to walk to the coffee shop and do a lot of that stuff. But stay tuned. Like I said, none of it is going to be easy, and it'll be fun sometimes. And but we're doing it for the future of Cleveland for sure. Everyone good at the moment? All right. And wanted to show, and I guess I just want to add that there's heavy things on the agenda today, and just wanted to emphasize that those are things that are part of the plan, have always been part of the plan, and we're just working the plan. All right, that's all I have on that, unless there's more questions, and certainly as we go through the agenda, we'll look at that. Army Corps projects, if you go over to the Church of God of Prophecy on across from Logan's, they're starting to see some business out there, some work out there. They're also going to be working on Clearwater Army Corps projects. So you have two fairly huge projects that are going to be simultaneously going throughout the fall and winter. So you might get questions on that, and those are projects that we planned 4 or 5 years ago, well, maybe it was 6 or 7 years ago, and working on those to help with water quality, but also flooding, of course. I do have another topic that we can talk about now. Well, I'm gonna wait. I was gonna go over the urban growth boundary map. Would you rather do that now or wait till the public hearing? We can have a brief
I
conversation.
think a brief conversation now, because there are some changes since the last time the council's seen it.
Robert, you want to come up and talk about the urban growth boundary? You have a map in front of you, and Robert is going to come and tell us why we're here and why we're talking about it, and a lot of those nuances, and will give me an opportunity to catch my breath. So this is yours. There is a full public hearing on this at 3 o'clock, but I think it's good to kind of walk through what we're seeing and what we're looking on. So go ahead. The floor is yours, Robert.
Thank you. So, as you all know, the state of Tennessee many years ago enacted the urban growth boundary law. We've initially adopted that, and then it's been amended one time since then. We're proposing another amendment with our partners, with Bradley County and the city of Charleston. State law mentions that before a municipality can present a proposal of the map change to the Urban Growth Boundary Committee, that we must hold 2 public hearings with our own legislative body, as well as take a voting action, which we would do at the second public hearing, which will be the 26th. So, in essence, what this map shows and what we've kind of determined with our own staff, as well as some of our partners in service delivery, along the eastern edge, it pretty much goes along the existing boundary as it is set today, which is kind of off of Michigan Avenue there, all the way down to the south end of the boundary. There's not a proposed change along those edges. There's a little bit of area along the south side where we've got some development interest and some other things going on already. In that area is where the urban growth boundary was extended most recently at the last revision, and so we propose to extend that just a little bit. And then on the western edge, we've pretty much, with our partners at Cleveland Utilities, taken their service delivery line and utilized it as our edge. When it comes to where can sewer be ran, based on what they look at, their engineers, from a professional standpoint, we said that's the edge. So along the western edge, all the way up, of course, and then you've got the wastewater treatment facility at the Hiwassee River. So what this does is look at our sewer infrastructure and knowing that we're the ones who are gonna have to provide the level of service for those areas if they develop more than they are now. The biggest difference between now and before about what this map does is many years ago, not that many, 10, cities could annex properties, in large chunks, without any written consent. Today, that's not possible. We only get annexations that come in or by property owner request. It's their right, that's what they wanna do. They wanna be in the city. It's not the city's determination, it's theirs, that they'd like to request it. We analyze it, we review it, we make a recommendation to you all. This is the area where we expect to see interest in annexation over, and keep in mind, this is not 5 years, 10 years. This is a long-term document that will allow me and my staff and all the other departments the ability to plan on a high level for service delivery. We're not saying we're going to service, all these areas immediately, but this is a planning document, and that's why we need it. We need the update. We have annexation by referendum. We'd rather work with our county partners and our city partners up in Charleston on the growth of the county and how that looks, and this is the best tool to do that. I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got any specific thoughts.
Any questions from the council? Robert, I'll jump in the deep end.
Yes, sir. Good luck.
Thanks. Southwest corner,
Yes, sir.
I-75 corridor, that to me visually is the biggest change from the map we saw at the first urban, so 75 corridor going towards southwest.
Yeah.
It used to follow, like it does at the north end, it used to follow on the south end, and that was taken away.
Yeah, the primary thought behind that little stem going out was that our growth boundary would feasibly meet Chattanooga's and pretty much say, but there's no property along there that could be necessarily serviced immediately, so it's something we really have to look at and analyze whether that's something we could feasibly do or not. It was mainly the road right away. We weren't really looking at extending land. It was just in essence saying our city boundaries could stretch that far.
When you talk about serving, you talking about wastewater?
I'm talking about all levels of
All the
service.
services.
Yeah, it's, I look at every level of it. I mean, every department represented back here behind me, they've all got a part to play in that as well, so. But wastewater is part of it, for sure, and electric and water and all those things.
I agree with your statement of this is a working document
It
for
is.
decades to come.
Yes.
And I'm thankful for the mayor and council prior to this setting that had the foresight of bringing in Cherokee Gateway, Exit 20.
Yes.
If you think about the growth that's occurred in the last 10 years down there, had it not been, and I think that's what I'm...
The biggest catalyst for the last change was the airport and the industrial park on the
Sure.
south end. And that was, they got, at that point, they said, they looked at it, this is what we definitely need today. Annexation was a different animal at that time. It's not that way now. So when I look at it, I'm actually can say I could plan for this from a regional planning perspective, as opposed to just not knowing what may change or what may happen, or having to go through this process again, just for something that's right outside the boundary, which is what we're facing today. I mean, literally contiguous to the city limits, but outside the urban growth boundary, easily serviceable for all levels. But to annex that property, it's a process. So this would make that much cleaner.
Roger, I got a
question about the annexation, the plan of service.
Yes, sir.
The plan of service, years ago, it took 8 years just to get all the services that they deserve when they annex it.
That's correct.
Have we improved on that standard, is it about the same time?
Well, many of the services that are delivered day one now. There's only a few that kind of linger out, and that's because they're higher value infrastructure projects. And those take a little bit more time, but we're doing really well, I think, on our timeline, especially from the city standpoint, because ours began day one.
Any other comments or questions from the council? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Brown. See you at 3.
I do want to add one extremely important element to this. What we are running into, and the council knows this, is that we are bumping up against our existing growth boundary, which you have this weird process of the annexation by referendum. We've been very clear with our friends at the county that we don't really want to use that as a tool, because functionally we think that, or I should say staff think that it works better that if you have a wider growth boundary, everything within that thing requires the county to work with the city to have an agreement to be able to annex and provide the services. We think that that is a much healthier way of working on that, and I think that that's the real benefit of this. If you use this boundary, anything within that boundary, that the county would be able to sit down and to have an opportunity to be at the table and work with us on that. And I think that I think those are the win. Those are the wins that we're looking for, is intergovernmental cooperation and working with the county and other residents.
Certainly gives more people an opportunity to be at the table about making the decision.
This question for you, or maybe Mr. Kimball. This is proposed. What are the forthcoming steps?
What happens from here is that you have, and Robert will correct me if I'm wrong, is that the urban growth boundary, that you'll send this, we will, once the county or the council says this is our map, then they will deliberate on there and they will make any changes or tweaks, or this needs to be in a little bit or this needs to be out a little bit. And then at that point, the growth committee, if they get, I think, a majority of people on the growth committee that support it, then the map goes to each of the 3 jurisdictions, City of Cleveland, City of Charleston, and the county for ratification. And then each partner will have to ratify, and so if you get all 3 of them to ratify, then you just send it to the state, and then they have some state process that they go and they look at it and make sure that it's fine. If one of the parties objects, then you can go back and you can look and see if you can resolve what the objection is. At the end of the day, there is a body at the state that if there is, if the Urban Growth Boundary Board approves it, they will have a hearing and they will make a decision on what the new growth boundary is. Essentially, it's administrative law process that they would make a determination on what it would be if all 3 jurisdictions can't agree on it. Did I get that right, Robert?
Yeah, you got it.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, at least we're out in front.
Yeah. And again, can't stress it enough, is what this process does is it gives the county more of a seat at the table and gives a partnership between everyone to have a voice in what we're doing. But knowing that the only annexations that come in are ones that are requested from property owners. It's a property right system. The only people we've ever annexed are people that want to be a part of the city. All right.
I'm glad we talked about this now rather than at 3.
Any other questions on that? You do have, it's a letter of agreement from AT&T. It's for the Inman project. A lot of the poles that you see up and a lot of the, issues have been trying to get a lot of the poles underground is that, and we're not necessarily surprised by the price, that we got this late. We have two options. I want you to be aware that we're spending this money on this, which it's budgeted and it's part of the Inman Street project, and we can put it on the next agenda and approve it. Or if you wanted to add it to the agenda, you could certainly add it to the agenda and vote on it today. It's your prerogative on how you wanna.
Would it speed the process up if we added it to the agenda?
I don't believe it would speed what we're looking for is, we're gonna tell them to go no matter what. So we're not gonna slow down, but I wanted to show you if there's 2 weeks, if anyone had any concerns, that now's the time to say something. You know, there's less wiggle room and less problems to go if you did it today than if you wait, if we told them yes and we changed our mind, but, besides that, I don't want to, cause any there. It's probably cleaner to do it today, but I also understand adding things to the agenda like
I'd
that.
to do it today.
do it today.
We don't want to slow down the scheduling in any way. So it might create a shadow on them doing the work. I'm ready to vote on it.
I think
All right.
it sends a good message too.
All
It
right,
does,
so
yeah.
that will be the next new business item, K as in kilo.
Okay. Also had, I think it's cleaner that we have these motions on the agenda for PQR and S. Put those on new business. We can do motions on the business, and you can just line those up and just have individual votes on that.
So that's consent, PQRS, moving all those to new business.
Yeah, and just have individual votes on there. I'm not aware of any issues. It's just, those are motions. We don't all the time do motions on consent agenda, and we can just have regular roll call votes on those. I don't know of any concerns or if anyone has any thoughts on that, but, items, that's really all I have before I start on the agenda review, unless there's any questions. Okay. Mr. Mayor, do you want me to begin the agenda?
Yeah, that's gonna, moving PQRS from consent to new business will take us to items L, M, and O on new business.
All right, thank you. Item 6A, we have a public hearing to hear public comments concerning a request by Phoenix for, this is an item that was already approved at the last meeting, a rezoning of 455 Inman. Item 6B, we have to hear public comments concerning a request by Barry Clark for consideration of plan of service for, to annex and ordinance to zone 9 acres, property on Benton Pike from R3 FAR to PUD 53, and Robert will talk about that during the public hearing. I believe it's all townhomes development. We did have a question on this one, and it was about how to work through what the foundations, should they have stone on the foundations or not, and you guys can discuss that. We talked about it as a staff level. We're not necessarily opposed to that, but that was a question that was brought to our attention. Item 6C is to hear public comments by request from Morgan Lane for consideration of an ordinance PUD 37 to add 20 townhome units to Minnis Road. My understanding on this one is that this does not add any new units. It just reallocates them. The maximum number of units remains the same. It just changes the allocation. And Robert will talk a little bit about that. You have item 6D to hear public comments on the city council on the urban growth boundary that we just went through. Consent agenda 7A, concerning requests by, and we heard this at the last meeting from John Port to rezone 0.49 acres on Old Tasso Road from R2 to CG. Item B, final passage of amending Title 14, Chapter 2 zoning regulations, adding auto sales as a conditional use in the CG. Item C, final passage of zoning ordinance 36 concerning request by Brandon McDonald for consideration of ordinance to zone 2.8 acres on Robin Hood Drive from RA, R3 to PUD 14. Item D, final passage of 37, request by Joel Simpkins for rezoning 1 acre on North Lee Street from CH to mixed use. Item C, final passage of zoning ordinance 38, requesting by Phoenix to rezone the item on 455 Inman. Item F, Resolution 83, accepting Dalton Way 220 feet as a city street. This is the road that go on off of Inman Street that goes back to the parking at the Inman, at the future Starbucks connector for the Greenway. It's a Greenway trailhead parking. It's the road that goes back there. In the agreement that we had with Teresa Dalton Evans, the agreement said that we would name that road, so we're following through on that. We still have to work on a couple items to finish that out, and that's one of them. We have item G, 84, authorizing the city to purchase through the Master Intergovernmental Cooperating Unit. We have item H, 85, authorizing the mayor to sign amendment 1 with TDOT for a multi-use path along 25th Street for Georgetown to Peerless. This is the MMA it's an MMA grant. Essentially, it's a 10-foot path coming from Georgetown Road down to Peerless, and this just extends that agreement. Things are processing, and they're working on design for that. Item I, 86, authorizing mayor to sign a proposal with TDOT related to the intersection improvements at 25th Street and Ocoee Street. This does not add any funds. Do you have anything to say on this one, Robert? Anything we need to know?
It's a right-of-way document that protects the city once the state starts working on the project.
So it's a good thing?
It's a good thing.
Okay. And for all we know, the timeline is still staying the same, and they're
consistent so far.
Yep. Item J, 87, authorized participation in the Judy Housley Safety Partners Matching Grant with Public Entities Partnership. Item K, 88, approving a proposal from SNME for professional engineering services for a Phase 1 environmental assessment at the former Whirlpool site. Motion approving 1-year contract extension for drug and alcohol testing with physician services. Appointment M, Animal Shelter, appointing Dr. Kelsey Yates for a 3-year term. We have item N, a reappointment of Historic Commission P.J. McKay for an additional 4-year term. appointments for the shade tree. The mayor did this at the last meeting. And then we have item P. These are the four that we put on business. The Worst Street, now would be a good time to talk about Worst Street. Where's David? Come on up and tell us what you know about Worst Street and see where we are on this. You do have a copy of the design for what Inman Street will look like and what the Worst Street closure, and I'll give it to David Shealy, our traffic engineer, to walk you through on some of the due diligence they've done since the last time we discussed this.
Thank you. I think you have a copy of the proposed plan for Inman Street, which on page 4 has the detailed closure of Worth, which that's page 1. If you can go to page 4, Chris. So I think the concern from 2 weeks ago was that of consent of the property owners that have access onto Worth. We followed up with them again to verify their approval and consent, and we got it. I think we do have documentation of that.
In writing.
Yeah, I think.
So just to go down the slide.
I believe Seth was working on that. But yeah. There you go.
And you have copies of that, this is one of you too.
So essentially what we're looking at is an extension. Originally we were ending the sidewalk with the Inman Street project just to the east of Worth Street. Now we're going to go to just to the west side of Worth Street to close the gap with the sidewalk, eliminate a small portion of the road to provide a gap between the back of the sidewalk and the remainder of the street, some vegetation, grass, etc. So that when you drive down Worth Street, for those businesses that have driveways, it'll terminate before the sidewalk.
What kind of signage are you gonna put on that?
On, up at the top,
Yeah,
I think the proposal is to, right now the sidewalk stops on both sides of Worth, is to connect the sidewalk across what was once Worth and give
okay,
it,
so that'll eliminate that problem.
yeah, well, it'll be a drop sidewalk, but it'll provide the illusion that it's a driveway. It'll function as a driveway.
Okay.
And we'll have signs that say dead end or not a through street.
Not a through
Yeah.
street, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Any more questions?
And then show the rest of Inman Street.
Okay. So similar to 2 weeks ago, we're working on the 3-lane section going through downtown. So this is merely a continuation of that. Going all the way back to the beginning of a 5-lane section. We have to go from 5 lanes down to 3. So at this approximate location in between Highland and Oak, that's where that transition takes place. Heading west, or heading east, going from 2 lanes down to 1, and then conversely heading west, going from 1 lane back to 2. So that transition had to occur somewhere. That was the most logical and best fit location for that to take place. Everything else along the corridor remains the same. As far as access, nothing changes. But instead of a 4-lane road, it'll be a 3-lane road, striped accordingly. And I believe that's a pending resurfacing project. We're working with Public Works, with our paving contractor, to get a timeline to pave it, so it'll be on fresh asphalt, brand new asphalt.
This fall.
This fall.
I'm changing the subject a little bit. Is there any way to improve Inman, where the intersection of Inman, First Street and Highland comes together?
There is, and I think that that was something thrown about inside the 3rd Street plan,
Yeah.
this plan.
So we're
About,
gonna wait.
I don't wanna get ahead of anything, but
Okay.
there are some things that we can do. But it would require abandonment of a street. That's what it would require. But I don't wanna get too far out in front of that.
Yeah, you know, the simple deal that you did at 5 Points, the little island on the turn, it improved that handling, I mean, in my opinion, making it safer.
Well, that's something that we can certainly look at, is improving this area right here with, you can go as light as something that's out in front of Target,
Yeah.
or you can go to Go Island, but,
Could you put delineators out there?
you could, yeah. As a matter of fact, I
Same
think,
with the one Cassida put in front of Oak.
there used to be delineators that,
Really does make a
that made this,
Yeah,
there used to be there 20, 25, 30 years ago. They just one by one got eliminated and no one ever put them back.
yeah, but did it have a raised island at that? I don't think so.
I don't think there's ever been a raised island.
No.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we had, people kept running over them, and finally, they just disappeared.
I can tell you that the delineators that used to be out in front of Logan's, those were of a lower quality, not rated to withstand traffic hitting them. The ones that are out at Target are a much better product. That they're made to hit, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but like 500 times at 70 miles an hour. They're made to be
They're
hit.
pretty tough, if you could do that. Yeah. But if we could, I mean, just cosmetically,
Yeah.
make it look better and make it safer.
We can take a look at that, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shealy. Any other questions for the council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And this is on business, so if you have any other questions between now and then, we can certainly entertain a lot of those conversations. Lost my place. Item Q is the approval of purchase of a purchase agreement for the industrial park. This includes the process that I kind of went through. There's a 6-month time frame that we have to accomplish those. We've talked to SNME, and they have indicated that that is sufficient time. And we would start immediately and begin the process of bringing that in. Any questions on that agreement to buy that former Whirlpool property? And that, we can talk, if anyone has any questions, let me know. We've already talked about it a little bit. And then, you know, the city council building, which is already under contract, one of the things that we've had a lot of feedback as far as the streaming for the city council, and this essentially locks in all of that for the new city council building on that we would have live streaming, that you can have cameras set up, and it's very efficiently done. Has all the monitors, it has any of the technology we need to have training, to have council meetings, a lot of that. And I believe the price is, I forgot the price off the top of my head. Is it 150? Is that what it says? I can't remember. What was that price? 157, which we felt is a pretty good price to provide all of the technology in that building. It includes, how big is the board?
Trying to pull up the numbers now, but like.
75.
Well, we have like a,
I think it's 75. 75 inch.
what's that?
Thought that's what the proposal said. 75 to 75 inch screen?
No, it's like 15 feet by 10 feet or something.
Oh, good.
I think it's
13. So that will provide the ability for people online to be able to see it effectively, and it was really what was the best to do that. So with that, that would be included in this. Moving to business, we have ordinance 39, amending the Cleveland Municipal Code, Chapter 18, or Title 18, Chapter 3, the MS4 Phase 2 Stormwater Management Program to meet TDEC permit requirements. Out of all the stuff we're doing today, this is probably the most important thing that needs to be done. We have, the Stormwater Committee has reviewed this and is making changes to make us in compliance with federal law, and which then the state gives us a permit. This just updates us to make sure that we're in compliant with what the federal law is and the state law. Item 10B, resolution, I believe Chris is here for any questions. And thank you for, it's very, very complex stuff, and Chris has done a nice job of working with the Stormwater Committee to make the necessary changes on there, so thank you for that. Item C, Resolution 90, concerning request by Barry Clark for consideration of the resolution to annex 9 acres at Benton Pike, and we talked about there, and there'll be a public hearing on that item. Same thing for item D, that's the ordinance for zoning, that 9 acres. That is essentially a pretty right by Whirlpool property. Item E, concerning a request from Morgan Lane for consideration of ordinance to amend PUD 37 site plan. Again, this is not a net increase of properties, it's just that it changes the allocation. F, we have amending the Cleveland Municipal Code, Chapter 1, to add sections 13-108, establishing requirements for the storage of tires within the city limits of Cleveland. Robert, why don't you come up and let's talk about this while we got a free opportunity. Walk us through that. Does Chris have the? Yeah. So this is something that we're trying to be proactive instead of reactive, but walk them through what this does.
This isn't too overreaching, but one thing, if you look, I'm gonna walk over here, right here, you've got a pile of what I'm gonna estimate several hundred used tires, just sitting on the corner, right here at the corner of Central, and Central's actually this one, that's Edwards. They may be hidden, but they're there, they're an environmental issue, it's a fire hazard issue, there's a lot of safety related problems with this amount of tires, whether they're used or not. When they're stored, they need to be stored properly, and what we're saying is it needs to be stored within some kind of structure. A lot of these companies do use a trailer, and then the truck will come and hitch the trailer and take away the used tires. We're not saying that's a problem, but there's a time limit on how long they can sit outside and in a number, because we've got piles and piles of them in the city. I know there's logistical problems with some of the companies that do the hauling and things like that. There's a lot of parties involved in this process, but from the city's standpoint, we have a safety issue, a fire hazard, and environmental issue that needs to be addressed, and this is our way of addressing that. So, you go to one more, Chris. Let's see. Yeah, so you can't even see this one really, but it starts here and it goes all the way this way, and it's starting to wrap around the back of the building. That's off South Lee Highway near the Rebel. So what we need them to do is work more efficiently. You may have to, I don't know what the answer is for them. Find a new hauler. There's companies that do this, but build a structure for these to be housed in temporarily, and then haul them off in a timely manner. 2 weeks, 14 days is what we're looking at. I spoke with Freddie, who works over here at Capital Tire, about his timeline. He's on a 2-week window himself. He said, that doesn't hurt me, what you're saying, you know, I'm already in compliance with it. So they do leave them outside, but, this is a temporary thing, and that's what we're saying, you got 14 days. Otherwise, you need to keep them in an enclosed area, a structure, and then, because, eventually they'll start rolling out into the street, or who knows. So, we've got a lot of little locations like this, that need cleaned up, and this is our answer, and so I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got them.
Robert, does this change, or does the original ordinance speak to, if they do have a structure, how many tires they can be storing?
There are certain codes that the fire department has about storage of these things. It has to do with the fire code and that they're flammable. What this does is said it has to be in compliance with all other existing laws. So we're not changing that number of what's inside, because I guess it's dependent on the square footage of the space, which would be hard for us to pin down. But it does say you have to comply with existing laws on storage, which they do have guidelines for that, if that makes sense.
It does. There are other mayors that are discussing
Yes.
the way that these companies are getting around external storage. They're either buying or building or leasing warehouse space.
Yes,
And then it becomes a fire hazard. I think it's Kingsport. They had a terrible fire.
that's correct.
with-
Yes.
Because of tires being stored.
And they weren't stored in a correct fashion.
That is a correct statement.
If we get wind of a situation like that, we've got a number of different departments that can take action, and address that. Obviously, it's and a lot of these retailers will tell you they have issues with the logistical getting
Sure.
rid of them.
Sure.
And, there's a lot of different variables that you'll hear, but, places to take them, that they're difficult. So there's a number of things, and our intention is not to add to that burden, but we do need to address it in a safe way, and that's what this is about.
Thank you. Any other questions? It's a great segue to brag on Councilwoman McKenzie for her
You
work.
know, it sounds like you're gonna keep, I guess, the quantity down, but it's still gonna be, not a very pretty picture.
Well, and, if you've got a few outside, that's fine, but for the most part,
And they have to be stacked.
in a stacked fashion, not just strewn about. But from an aesthetic standpoint, we're saying it's gotta be any storage, long-term, of new, old, whatever, would be in a primary structure. You would not see it. A tent can't work, an awning can't work. It's gotta be a structure behind a wall, a roof.
How do we know, when they're moving tires out, say every 14 days? For instance, like this one on the South Lee Highway, I know from I go by there quite often.
Sure.
And I see them loading up a lot of tires, especially on weekends, they'll load up. So how do we know that what's out there now, is it new tires?
Yeah,
You know,
well,
how do we
and.
know that's, they've not been sitting there 14 days or 2 days or?
Right, well, we don't know that, but the number is excessive in a sense, so it's gonna be drawn down immediately, we'll know that, because we're gonna go let all these people know, once this ordinance passes, you're going to have to do something with this, and here's the guidance to follow.
The temporary, you can only have like 25 for 14 days. If it's not those temporary ones that are moving quickly, they need to be in a storage, they can be in a U-Haul, but the door always needs to be down.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and it's a question you ask yourself, cause, then we start getting into, well, we're gonna make you mark them and do all this, and I'm not sure. But I think just having that number, once it exceeds that, we know, and if we go by on a weekly rotation, which our guys do, they do these rotations out in the field, take a picture of it, things like that, that's our best tool.
Joe, some of these places got just trailers parked.
Yeah.
And they're using trailers for storage.
That, and that is okay for a temporary, but it's gotta be moved and out and then empty and closed and things like that. For the most part, it's, I know, and in some places, these trailers have not moved.
No, they haven't.
And the intention is for them not to move, and they're going to have to. We have one retailer who used to do business, and that's what they did. They'd throw it in the truck. Once the trailer got full, they hauled it off. Okay, but now I've got several places where there's multiple trailers full and there's no intention of taking them anywhere.
Now, they're using them for permanent storage.
Permanent, that's not, it has to be a
It's not
primary
temporary
structure,
storage.
as defined in the zoning ordinance, which is not a trailer or anything, that can roll.
But I appreciate this next step,
Mhm.
and I understand there will be unintended consequences.
I'm sure.
But I think this is a step in the right direction.
Well, and the
So
unintended consequences, we're prepared to work through.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
Right, but most of our, businesses, our retailers would be, it won't be an issue for them to be compliant. We just have a few outliers, and that's where we're.
Right, and it is a step in the right direction. But how do you police it?
Well, that's why I said the rotation that we do, I mean, if they've gotta be inside, you can only have a certain number outside, boom, that's one. You see them outside more than that number, you go in and tell them, you've gotta get these put
But I mean,
away.
is the city gonna have a person that goes by weekly?
Well,
Every
it's
2 weeks, monthly?
we already have people out looking for other things, and this will just be one more thing they're looking at, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once they store these, and if they store them longer than the 14 days it's allowed, doesn't that affect how they can dispose of them? I mean, I know there's certain rules about contaminated tires and things like that. So-
Yeah, well, and if they're sitting out like this, they're gonna, that's the environmental aspect I'm talking about, as well as the mosquitoes and the other things that, so, yes, and I know that's the places that take these and shred them and then put them in landfills, because the tire itself can't go in a landfill as a whole, it has to be shredded. The condition of these and how they're kept, that will have impact on it, yes, a positive impact.
And then it makes it harder for them to dispose of them.
I think I don't think this would, yes. Having it secured properly is better for them as well, in that sense.
You know, this is not only just an aesthetic issue, but I've gotta believe our mosquito problem is a lot worse because of these tires being.
We're actually coming at it from an environmental safety aspect. I mean, the aesthetic thing is a unintended benefit, but when we look at it from code enforcement, it's safety. I mean, it's environmental. It's the fire code. Those are the things we're really looking at.
Have you kind of patterned this after some other communities that have been successful with it?
To a degree, yeah. We do a peer review of cities and what they do, and then we kind of spin it around internally and figure out, because a lot of them tied into a lot bigger steps, and we're taking a little bit of a baby step with this, but it's a good one.
It's a good start.
Yeah, but it is based on peer review, what works, what doesn't. That's how we do most things.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then on item G, we have amending Municipal Code Title VI to add Chapter 5 to establish requirements for obtaining driveway permits for residential commercial lots within the city. And then you have H, the bid report for the Cherokee Civic Center project. As you know, Tricon was the low bidder on that project. And then we get to the emergency shelter, and we can have an extended conversation on that. You have the bid report. There is the emergency shelter that is on Wildwood, and you see that's about a 4,000 square foot building. Behind the emergency shelter is about a 2,500 square foot building that has just been basically used for storage. There was a thought brought forward to bring more homeless shelter housing in that 2,500 square foot building. It was brought forward by the Cleveland Bradley County Community Services. They bid it, and the price came in much higher than what the estimate was. And we found that there was a problem in the bid documents, and we thought that that we could rebid it again and see and we improved the structure. The bid that we got on this is about $505,000. And it would add 22 additional homeless units. We are not making any structural changes to the building. We are not replacing the roof. I think we put in a couple windows. So basically, you're just renovating the inside of this building. And wanted to put it before the council to see what we wanted to do. It's not horrible from a price standpoint, but you know, it's $505,000. The total project to do that is about $544,000 because there was some engineering and other issues. The county has said that they would put $250,000 towards that. We think it should just be 50-50. And wanted to lay that in front of the council and get a sense on how you wanted to work through this issue. If you say yes, we would put in 50%, the county would put in 50%, and we would have 22 new units for the homeless shelter.
Have there been any discussions with the county about doing that? Putting in 50%?
They said that they would do $250,000, but we haven't pushed them on that. So you're, 50-50 would be 270, and they said that they would do 250.
Joe, what are they talking about? Just like a dormitory in that building, or?
Yeah, it's
with
essentially,
beds,
it's a building that you have sheetrock with divided into rooms and.
So it is divided into individual rooms?
Yeah, you have a sprinkler system and you have a shower and you have restrooms, and that's pretty much what it is.
Each room has one?
No, I think it's, I think they're a couple restrooms. You know how many showers are in there, Brian?
I don't remember how many showers. They're not individual rooms. There's 4 to 6 beds in there. There's 4 to 6 beds.
Yeah, he's saying there's 4 to 6 beds in each room. So it's not individual rooms, it's.
Councilman Estes, you had a comment?
I got a question and then a lot of comments, actually. Remind me, and this may be a question for Brian, what's the cost per square foot?
Cost per square foot.
Square foot. Yeah, Brian may need to come up. To my colleagues, I spoke at length with Jonathan, Brian, and Joe about this.
Christie, I still don't think that they're.
I don't think these are working.
What was the question?
Cost per square foot.
I think we figured out with engineering and everything is about 183 a square foot.
So, this is a work session. I'm just rambling. I'm not, my mind is not settled on this. The shelter itself, if you've been in there recently, just what we have now needs a lot of attention. We're taking a building that's falling down for 22 beds. The Caring Place has moved to 20th Street, roughly 20, I don't know their exact address, by the Justice Center. I paid attention to somewhat how Chattanooga has handled Onion Bottoms, trying to put all their services in the same area. It's not like the Caring Place is right there across the road, and the church here is serving food, and the Salvation Army is now, on 20th Street as well, southeast. I know it's costing us $100,000 of our AARP money, and then another $194. One option that we could do as a council is not just do it poorly, but move it somewhere on property down near the Caring Place. Build something that's right, and when you build new, particularly, and people who know this, Kathy, Andrew, you people know this better than I do. When you build new for these types of shelters, there's a lot of federal and state grant money for these that are, again, you're taking a risk. Do we do this right and do it elsewhere? Or do we just put up some sheetrock at $180 a square foot, create some 22 beds, oh, look, we've done it, and then the shelter itself is still in bad shape, The Caring Place is 1.5 miles away. Social Security office is another, you know, it's not, it doesn't, I don't know.
So Bill, you're saying we need to postpone it?
I'd say that we need to think through this. There's other options than just, while it's an easy, hey, 22 new beds, could we do it better? Would it cost more? Yes. Would it serve Cleveland long-term and cost less? Yes. My opinion.
I think the term you're looking for is good money after bad.
Yeah, well, Brian, I'll tell you, I'm curious city staff's thoughts on this as well.
So, Bill, you're talking about moving that whole facility, which the city owns the property, and we had leased it, for $1 a year or something like that. So.
Find another city property closer to the Caring Place. Find county property closer to the Caring Place.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to think, is there value in that property?
Oh, the offset the cost, sure.
That we might turn around and sell that property and take that amount of money.
Look at this.
Yeah, I know what you, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we need to postpone it today. I'm not ready to vote on it.
Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, to answer your question, we've had the same conversations, and we basically are looking for direction. We kind of landed where you're at as sort of as an open question on what makes the most sense at this point. But we have had the same questions about the value of putting more money into that building versus a new building.
All you gotta do is go into what's currently there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, we're gonna add on to that just at 180 square foot.
No, it really just doesn't make sense to add on to it, because right now, the only way they're surviving is they're using the motel and putting people up from time to time at night at different places. And they have a couple of motels that they really just go in and put up 10, 12 people all the time, just lock them up, have them a room. And it's just expense, but it just keeps on. It's not paying it down in it. It just keeps on adding, keeps on building, keeps on getting more expensive. And then there's, the cleanup process is not really that good. It's not that healthy.
Let me make a delineation. This is hard to do, and there's people in the room who probably know more than me. If I misspeak, please jump in. The people I bump into downtown, from my house through downtown, are not necessarily the people that are at the shelter. Yeah. It's a different clientele at the shelter than the homeless people that we get calls about all the time. Yeah. The petty theft, those types of things. They're not at the shelter. Okay, there is some overlap. I know that. But I see these as two different populations that have two different needs. And I don't know, I don't know what's best. I'm just saying, I don't know the right answer. This gives, what's presented here at the end of our packet gives me pause.
Bill, you talk about that building over there. That building was built as a temporary.
It was a fire hall, wasn't
Yeah,
it? It was your fire.
Yeah, but it was built as a temporary building, and it was built because we knew that we was gonna have to move it. And so, and I don't know, 45 years ago, or whenever, it's been a long time. It was supposed to be a temporary building, and so it's not much of a building.
When I look at our 15 points that we're talking about following to start abating the homeless issue, and I look at what our new police officers are doing in the social services, I look at what United Way is kind of doing and the way the Caring Place has organized everybody through their database system. This seems outdated. This approach seems outdated rather than centralizing services. And I've never lived in a community that has more of a safety net than Cleveland, which is, it's amazing to me. And the Caring Place really has become a center and a hub for that. So I'm not saying that's where we move it. I'm just saying this does take some thought from people who have more experience than I do, or maybe even we do, rather than voting on this today. I'm just throwing out another option, and I defer to the city as well. I don't know exactly.
Councilwoman McKenzie, you got a question?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to refer from today and ask the staff to look into the cost, the possibility of building a new place, moving it to a new location, something nice like the Caring Center, especially if it's over in that area, and then bring that to us. and let us kind of get an idea what we're looking at before we move on this.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Turner, I'm gonna have to ask you, we could obviously take both the motion or the request from Councilman May, Estes, and McKenzie to move this. I don't know if next calendar gives you enough time, that's the 26th, or,
When do we have to have a decision for the county?
Well, I would, you know, we need to have a dialogue with our friends at the county and get some more feedback from them. But certain.
Way, I mean,
Yeah,
the whole.
yeah. I'm just specifically on this, but then I think there needs to be a dialogue, and it might be a good issue when we have our retreat to really get into to bring back, hey, here's option A and here's B and here's what this community's doing and here's what this community's doing and maybe bring in Caring Place and some other United Way and some other people to give some feedback on the issue as well.
And some cost.
And
Alright.
cost, of course.
so maybe the best action today would just be to table it for further discussion.
Take it off the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah, take it off the agenda and we'll go from there.
Got it.
Thanks.
Thank y'all, sorry.
I think I'm done.
I think long term, it's probably the better.
And it might be worth someone's while to go and have a tour of the facilities. That might tell us a lot.
There's a lot to see.
It's informative.
There may be individuals and organizations that if it were a new facility would be willing to underwrite part of it. Never know.
Certainly there are federal grants for these,
Some foundations.
private money as well. Sure.
We need to look into all that.
All right. Mr. Fivas, that does conclude your review of the agenda. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Fivas before we let him escape for 12 minutes? All right. Without, thank you, Mr. Fivas. Without any objection, can we move the reports of council members to the 3 o'clock meeting?
Yes.
All in favor of that, all right?
I have one thing, I think, for the body, I just want to announce that I think it's important.
Yes, sir, Mr. Estes?
So I know I said, I asked to add to the new agenda the naming of someone, and I have spoken with Kristen McKay to see if she would consider serving until the November election. She has agreed, that's the name I'm going to put forward at 3. So, if we want to talk about that now, great, I don't want to surprise you at 3. That's
Who was the name? What was the name?
Kristen McKay, the current elected official
All
for
right.
that.
All right, any other comments, questions, or concerns from the council for this 1 o'clock work session? That's now 11 minutes until our 3 o'clock meeting starts. Without any objection,